Hey everybody, welcome to Grayland Beach State Park on the Washington coast. You know, every time we go camping, it's a great time, but we always come back with a punch list of things we've got to fix, right? So this time, it's the fantastic fan. Listen to this. Yeah, no, that will not do. So my journey when I get home is going to be trying to figure out how to get rid of that squeak.
Some of you might be thinking that your only option is to just replace the fan motor with a new one. I looked online and these replacement motors are expensive at over $100. At that price, I'm going to do everything I can to see if I can eliminate the squeak by using some do-it-yourself skills. Spoiler alert, in this video I'm going to try something that ended up not working, so that hopefully that will save you some time. We will call that Plan A. What ended up working was Plan B, and I'll show you that in detail. Alright, let's get going. You'll need access to both the top and bottom of the fan unit. Remove the protective screen and then the fan blades. Now, just to make sure that the noise was coming from the motor unit and not the fan blades rubbing up against something, I started up the fan without the blades attached. Yep, that confirms it, so now I know it's the motor that's squeaking. From above, remove the MaxxAir vent fan cover by pulling out the side pins and then opening the fantastic fan cover to full extension so you have easy access to the fan compartment and the motor. Next, release the motor unit by removing the two nuts securing it to the fan compartment. In my particular vent fan installation, there is a way to get some slack so you can pull the motor out and work on it without cutting the wires. It involves first removing a cover plate on top of the fan housing and then cutting a couple of cable ties that hold the wires to the frame. Now with those removed, you can then easily remove the motor while it is still wired. I realize that this might not be possible for all of you depending on your RV, but in my particular RV, I was able to pull the entire assembly out and lay it on the RV roof so I could work on it without cutting the wires. Okay, so plan A involved me attempting to fix the squeak by dropping a couple of dabs of sewing machine motor oil on the axle. I turned the motor on slow speed and turned it upside down so that gravity would make the oil lubricate the axle. I put a couple of drops on the axle and waited until those drops disappeared into the motor housing. Then I replaced the motor and secured it in place. Before I reinstalled the fan blades, I gave it a good washing. The blades were covered in dust, dirt, and greasy grime and needed a super good bath.
Okay, moment of truth. Let's see if Plan A worked. Oh. Oh no. I'd call that a fail. Alright, Plan B.
Okay, Plan B involved a little more ingenuity, but I was motivated to save $100 plus tax and shipping. It's time to disassemble the motor housing to see what was going on inside. Once I had the fan motor out of the frame again, I removed the two bolts holding the unit together. You won't be able to disassemble the motor without first removing the snap ring on the axle. I took off the snap ring with a tool specifically made for this. Then I gently pulled the unit apart and looked inside. Well, no wonder Plan A didn't work. On the top and bottom cover, you'll see there are sealed bearings that can't be accessed with lubricant from outside the motor housing. The 2 drops of oil that I put on the axle on Plan A just ran down the axle, did nothing to lubricate the bearings. Now, the axle, which is the spindle that holds the fan and makes it spin, is held in place by some strong magnets inside the housing. Give it a firm tug and it'll come out from the housing. Okay, every motor has a couple of contacts called brushes that will carry the electrical current that spins the motor. These are held against the axle with springs. The assembly, of course, needs to carefully be put back together, but first things first, let's lubricate the bearings by placing a couple of drops of oil on the bearings and then letting gravity do its work. All right, it's time to reassemble the motor. You have to gently push the brushes out of the way so that you can seat the axle properly. Now this might take a few tries because the springs will be working against you. You just have to figure out a way to clear them away so the axle can get seated. I used a mini screwdriver to assist. Now once the axle and brushes were in place, I replaced the housing, forgetting that it was strongly magnetized. Yep, it rudely yanked the axle right out of place when I was putting the housing over the axle, and it made me start all over again. Okay, this time, after the axle and brushes were in place, I put downward pressure on the axle to hold it in place while I replaced the housing, and this worked. I replaced the top cover of the motor, bolted the assembly back together, replaced the snap ring, and then powered on the fan to make sure the fan was working by watching the axle spin around. Awesome, I must have got it right. Okay, we're almost to the goal line. Put the fan motor back in its place and secure it down, and then reattach the fan blades. Now it's time for the big test.
Okay, here comes the moment of truth. Oh yeah. Whisper quiet, baby. Love it.
All right, before considering this project a success, a couple of final items. One is let's take care of the loose wires by securing them down, again, using zip ties, and replacing the cover plate. The vent cover was pretty dirty, so I decided to just go ahead and clean that off while we're here. And then replace the cover over the vent cover. I guess that's the vent cover. Finally, replace the protective screen inside the cabin, and you are in business.
Oh, that squeaking fan was gonna drive me crazy. But with a little bit of ingenuity and maybe an hour's worth of time, you too can have a good as new MaxxAir Fantastic fan. Awesome. Check it out. Okay, hey, thanks for tuning in today, and I hope you will subscribe. And I hope that if this video was helpful to you, you will stay cool this summer as I will. All right, see you soon, everybody. Be sure to subscribe.